Up, fight fans, thank you once again for coming through. Much appreciated. Remember, hit that subscribe button if you guys are new to the channel. All right, very quick video. I'm going to do a more in-depth video about this fight as we get closer, maybe a week or so out after I've seen sort of sparring and a few sort of behind-the-scenes videos, so I can kind of really give a detailed explanation as to who I think is going to win. I have my favorite to win, but and I'll reveal that in this video. But in terms of closer to the fight, who I think will win, that could change, right? As it always does. I think so far, 2018, we've got a great start to the year in terms of fights being announced. And I think we're very lucky. There was a time when I genuinely thought that UFC or MMA was going to take over boxing. I felt like they were giving us the matches we wanted, and I felt like boxing had struggled to produce matches. I think 2016 was a really bad year for boxing, but I think the back end of 2016, 2017 have been great, and I think it's just kind of building and building. Like so far, obviously we know Anthony Joshua, Joseph Parker, massive fight. Dylan White versus Lucas Brown, another good fight. Valdez Quigg, don't sleep on that fight. That's a fantastic fight. And Wilder Ortiz, another good fight. All kind of 50-50 fights, really. Another one added to that, obviously, is St. George Groves. I call him St. George all the time. St. George Groves versus Chris Eubank Jr. Again, I can't split this fight. Fantastic matchup. And it's strange. I actually didn't think this fight would happen. I thought we were going to be more likely to see Chris Eubank Jr. versus James DeGale, or maybe James DeGale versus George Groves in a rematch. But nonetheless, we've got this one, and I think it's probably worked out for the better. I think it's a fantastic matchup, and I feel like these two have a bit of history. Obviously, we know about the sparring wars, and I think George Groves has probably admitted that maybe Chris Eubank Jr. did get the better of those. I'm not a big fan of that sparring stories. I don't know. It seems to be something that a lot of fighters do now. You know, I beat you up in sparring, and I know so many stories about sparring. I've been there. I've seen fighters get dropped in sparring, and believe you me, on the night means nothing. They put on their A-game hat and they perform. So I don't read too much into sparring, but Chris Eubank Jr. might. And I guess in boxing, a sport of inches, you kind of take every advantage you can take. And if Chris Eubank Jr. feels like, look, I beat him up in sparring, I can beat you again, then he's going to use that. And good luck to him in using that. I think with Chris Eubank Jr., for me, I've always been waiting to see when he'll step out of his dad's shadow, right? And I think that happened a few years ago. And it was the Carl Froch versus George Groves rematch. And Carl Froch used Chris Eubank Jr. as the chief sparring partner. And I think we saw clips there of how good Chris Eubank Jr. could be. I remember he was going up against the number one super middleweight in the world at the time. Andre Ward was sort of in exile, so Carl Froch was the number one super middleweight in the world, and he looked really good. Carl Froch was in peak condition. Chris Eubank Jr. looked in peak condition, and from the small clips that we saw, Chris Eubank Jr. looked fantastic against Carl Froch. And you almost felt like, for me, that was when I thought, like, we've got a good fighter here. We've not just got a guy that's living off his dad's name. We've got a good fighter here. He didn't do well against Billy Joe Saunders. I was live at that fight. For the first 6 rounds, it almost looked like he didn't know what he was doing. For the 6 rounds after that, he looked fantastic and nearly got a draw. But since then, you have to admit, he's done well. He's done well. He hasn't fought the who's who, but he's almost cleaned up the English division in the likes of sort of Nick Backwell, Tom Doran, Gary O'Sullivan, and then he's tried to step up a level. And I think he's done well against Arthur Abraham. Obviously, the fantastic performance against Yildirim last time out. I can't lie to you, with all that being said, I'm surprised that he's favourite over George Groves. Betting have him favourite over George Groves, and that shocks me a bit. I mean, look, George Groves has the best jab in British boxing. George Groves has been in there with a who's who. Badu Jack, Carl Froch, even James DeGale very early, and he's performed phenomenally. Even in the one where he got smashed by a Carl Froch, leading up to that knockdown, he looked good. George Groves is a fantastic fighter, and I feel like he's underrated. I think he's massively underrated, and I don't know why. Even in a split decision loss to Badu Jack, he looked good, and was very close to winning that title. Didn't win it. Changed trainers, went with Shane McGuigan, and I think that slowly but surely, they built him up to be a confident, fast, powerful George Groves again. And then George Groves obviously gone on to win the world title against Fedor Chudinov. So that was what, third or fourth time asking. 2 fights with Carl Froch and obviously Badu Jack. So 4th time round, he won a world champion. He won a world title. And I always feel like winning a world title does give you that extra confidence. I know that Chris Eubank Jr. has a world title as well, but I don't think you can compare the IBO world title to the WBA world title. You just can't, right? I mean, Quinlan, you're not going to compare Quinlan to Chudinov. I have George Groves as favourite, just. I have George Groves as favourite, just. I feel like the experience, you know what it is? I don't, as good as Chris Eubank Jr. is, look, I think Chris Eubank Jr. is a bit special. I think he should be at 160. I think that's the division for him. I think it's almost a middleweight here fighting a light heavyweight. I think that's the disparity in weight between these two. And I feel like the experience might count for a lot here. And experience does count for a lot on the big stage. And we saw it, I know it was a long time ago, but we saw it against Billy Joe Saunders. Billy Joe Saunders, just a bit more experience, kind of just showed how to outbox Chris Eubank Jr. Chris Eubank Jr. is a fantastic athlete. Really is a fantastic athlete. He's not yet a fantastic boxer. He still makes silly mistakes. He's getting better and better all the time, but he still makes silly mistakes. And I think someone with the experience of George Groves could, and again, could pick him off. But we're talking, I mean, if I'm picking a favourite, we're talking 51-49 in George Groves' favourite. It's that close for me between these two. What do you guys make of Chris Eubank Jr. being favourite? Is it justified, or is it just a case of the betting companies just going on the hype, right? Chris Eubank Jr. is the new breed. What do you make of Chris Eubank Jr.'s lower weight? Would that play any impact on the fight? Give me your opinion on the fight itself. Again, I'm going to do a build-up to the fight closer to the event. Remember, the fight takes place 17th of February, so maybe a couple of weeks more I'll do a build-up. But for now, I just want you guys' opinion on why Chris Eubank Jr. is favourite. Who is your favourite to win the fight? And how do you think both of these guys match up against James DeGale if they ever do fight James DeGale again? Let me know. Peace.